Welcome to the Wake Up Call podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Hopkins, life coach, recovering perfectionist, crazy animal lover, and your go-to friend for all things wellness. If you're the type of woman who constantly feels burned out, overwhelmed, and like you have zero time for yourself, then this is the show for you. I'll show you that it is completely possible to live a life you look forward to every single day by learning simple, actionable steps to start putting yourself first. Burnout and overwhelm are not welcome here, but a little bit of crazy sure is. So if you're ready for your wake-up call with a girl who's not afraid to drop an F-bomb every now and then, let's dive in. Hey guys, and welcome to the Wake Up Call podcast. This is your host, Alicia Hopkins, and I'm so glad you're joining me for another episode today. So today what I want to talk about are some surprising signs that you may be out of alignment in your life. Okay, so I need to break that down in two ways. Okay, so there's a little bit of irony in the use of the word surprising, because what's not surprising is many of us are operating in this way in our lives. Like many of us are experiencing the things I'm about to share with you. And we've accepted it as normal. And that's what I find really surprising, because as I break each of these things down, you could look at any one of them and say, well, gosh, that's not how I would want to feel every day. Or of course, that's not normal. But I guarantee you probably feel more than one of these things I'm about to talk about. Okay, so the other thing I want to break down is this word alignment, because, right, it can be really buzzy. I don't want it to sound too life coachy. Here's what I think of when I'm hearing the word alignment. It's when what you value and want for your life, what's really important to you, right? Like you feel it deep in your soul. You know that that's what you want. And are your actions congruent with that, right? So the things that you want, do you see them present in your life? When those match, or at least, pretty close, I view that as alignment, right? But where it can be out of alignment is when the things that you value and are important to you are not demonstrated in the way you're living, right? Like you don't see those things present in your life. And it's not uncommon. I know that's what brought me to my wake-up call moment with anxiety, was that I was leading a life that by all standard measures was good, but I was missing from it, right? The things that were really important, what I value, were happening with less frequency, and I was building it more of what I thought it should be, or, what would be pleasing to others, operating out of perfectionism, right? So when I was operating that way, I know now, I didn't in the moment, that I was out of alignment, right? And then you can only operate that way for so long before you start experiencing symptoms, sensations, certain thoughts, patterns, right? And that's what we're going to dive into in this episode, are some of these symptoms, those patterns, the thoughts that come up, so that if you're hearing this and you're resonating, if you're identifying with, these things I'm about to go over, it's an opportunity for you to do a check, right? And get clear on your values and see, how do you bring them forward in your life, right? That's the work that I want this podcast. I want it to evoke that, like stimulate you to do so. But it's also what I do in my coaching, right? It's where I offer support to help people who need a guide in this season of their life to bring more of those things, what they value, into their day-to-day experience of their life. Okay, so let's get into some of these symptoms, right? So this notion of feeling overwhelmed and burned out, sadly, we've accepted this as just a way of being. I think now that more and more of us are experiencing it, I do think there's more attention on burnout these days. But in a world that rewards hustle, productivity, more, right? It's easy to get burned out. And when it's the messaging you see all around you, it's easy to accept it as okay, right? So you're feeling overwhelmed. You feel like there is just so much to do and you don't even know where to start. Or when you think about burnout, it's like you're so fucking exhausted, but no amount of sleep fixes it. Like I really relate to that, is that I could sleep, but it's every day waking up and just feeling exhausted. And it's because you are. It's more than physical exhaustion. It's mental exhaustion, right? Like we're not restoring ourselves. So it's like you are so bogged down in thoughts and just everything swirling in your head that it really starts manifesting into physical exhaustion. Also, too, what comes up, I know, is that it's this feeling of being like on all the time or like very reactionary. You can even think about it as like short fused, that just every little thing, it's like you're just anticipating like what's about to happen next, right? That can be a sign of moving in this world out of alignment for too long, right? So something else that I think shows up is if you're noticing you're feeling a lot of indecision, which of course piggybacks from overwhelm, but also that you're questioning everything, right? Maybe you're really starting to take a look and you're saying like, is my job right for me? Is this relationship right for me? Is where I'm living right for me? Like, you just question everything. And there's a lot of reasons that can show up, but I think that when it relates to alignment, I think that if you are not connected to what is important to you and what you really want for your life, you start feeling a little lost. It's easy to kind of go whichever way the wind, right, blows you, or where you're getting praise or validation. You start looking outside of you to tell you what is okay and what you should be doing. But here's the problem with that, is that when you are using things outside of you as your guidepost for how you're doing in this thing called life, you're aiming for a moving target. And when you are in alignment, you start feeling so in tune internally that a lot of that questioning goes away because you're not looking for something outside of you to tell you what's right. You know inside of you, right? You know it in every fiber of your being. So that questioning, right, isn't so loud or frequent. So another thing that I think shows up for a lot of us is we are overperforming and we're always looking for something to do. And that shows up because we're trying to overcompensate for this feeling of something's not right. So what do? Our good old culture, right? That we praise productivity and more. We think if I just achieve this, if I just go do some more things, I will feel better. But you're not really solving the problem that you're really experiencing, right? You're just trying to do things to make yourself feel better, like that you are productive, but you're really just spinning and kind of aimlessly reaching to just do in your life, right? So another thing that can come up is that it's this notion of wanting to feel good all the time. Like you're participating in a lot of pleasure-seeking activities. And there's two things that show up here. It might be, right, when you come home at the end of the day, what do? You're immediately, you don't like how you feel in your day to day. Like we accept that it's like your job is the grind, right? You just got to get through it. And then you come home and you want to feel better. So you're numbing out, you're watching, binge watching Netflix and TV, you're pouring yourself the cocktail, you're stimulating yourself. Like you're going from one end of the spectrum to another, like from grinding it out to then overcompensating into feeling really good all the time. It also shows up in this way that we think that you just have to kind of get through the work week and then your fun is reserved for the weekend. So you kind of blow it out on the weekend. Look, we can all work hard, play hard, but if you are reserving feeling good and being happy as only for the weekends and when you're not working, it's a good sign you're out of alignment. The things that you want, the things that make you feel good in your life are not present on the regular. So you're overcompensating. You're trying to reach for these things that make you feel good because you're not feeling it organically from the inside, right? It's just a sign, something to watch out for if you are just constantly looking for these numbing activities that numb away the feelings you don't want to feel and then overcompensate like those pleasure-seeking centers in our lives, right? It's why we're addicted to screens, phones, all of it. So something else that I think and what I see is that this notion of like you're just going through the motions, right? You're getting up, you go to work, you do the thing, you come home. It's what comes to mind for me is that your day is kind of flat or it's like lacking color. The point I'm trying to get at is it's not that every day is a freaking picnic, but you can experience like depth and color and choice in your day. Like you are not a victim to the day, right? I think a lot of us feel like our schedule or work or our lives dictate what we want and we're just along for the ride. And I'm here to say that it doesn't have to be that way, right? You can decide what the tone, what the feel of your days are, but you've got to be conscious, aware, alert, and intentional about it, right? Getting in line with what you want and working to bring more of that forward, right? So that you don't feel so much like the hamster in the wheel going through the motions. So like I said, like any of these things that you looked at individually, you might say, Alicia, of course I don't want to feel that way. But I have a sneaking suspicion that you relate to a lot of these things. That burnout, the constant questioning of what you're doing, like looking for someone outside of you to tell you you're doing a good job. I think a lot of us feel this way. And my hope is that, right, this podcast will always serve you and help offer you nuggets to chew on that can wake you up, right? Wake up call, wake up, live your life differently, like stop accepting status quo. So this podcast is always here to serve you in that, right? But if you're in a season of life or feel like you're in overwhelm and need some support or a guide to work through some of these things, that is what my coaching is all about. My goal is to help you create a different experience of your day to day. And that doesn't mean that every day, I can't say it enough, it's not that every day is perfect. It's that more often than not, your days feel better. You don't feel so overwhelmed and exhausted and burned out. You start feeling like you have choice of where your time and energies go. You take back control. You are putting routines into place that are congruent with what you want in your life. You want to have a movement practice. You want to be reading. You want to be getting up and having time for yourself in the morning. I want to help you with all those things. And that stems from getting really clear, right? Sometimes we just need some help to clear out the clutter and help us get really dialed in on what do we want and how do we bring that forward. So in my coaching offering, it's a 12-week commitment, 3 months. And each week we meet for an hour and we talk about how do we start bringing more of the things you value forward in your life? How do we start bringing greater intention into your days? How do we set up routines that support your well-being so that you're not feeling exhausted and run down all the time? The way I work with clients is very customizable, right? I'm looking to see what each woman, what her struggle is. Where are there some opportunities to take back control of your time so that you can be doing more of those things that make you feel good? And if you're in this season, right, that you feel like you are spread thin, you're overwhelmed, and you're like, oh my gosh, I couldn't commit to that much time. If nothing else, who doesn't need 60 minutes, one day a week, to feel like you have a safe space to work through some things that are bogging you down, right? And to have small, actionable, doable steps to start creating the version of your life that you want. To have your day start feeling more about what you want it to feel like, how you envision yourself in an ideal day feeling. And I hit on something too, is the fact is that when you're in a coaching relationship with me, it's not me telling you these are all the things you need to do. This is a collaborative effort, right? We get really dialed into what you want in your days, like where are you getting bogged down? And the things that you're going to be working on from week to week are very small, but they create shifts that have a ripple effect, right? Because when you are overwhelmed, exhausted, burned out, indecisive, questioning everything, the last thing you need someone to do is to come in and tell you, okay, I need you to go accomplish these 20 things before I see you next week, right? That is not how this works. So if this is resonating, if you feel like you're in a season of your life where you need a little bit of support to create a different experience, maybe you don't even know what that experience is, but you know you want to stop feeling the way you are. I'm guessing the ways I've outlined leading up to this, I can help you with that. So send me a message. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Alicia D. Hopkins. My website, you will have a link. I'm working on that to, submit an inquiry if you're curious to learn more. If you do want to know more, the next steps are just jumping on a quick call with me. It's 30 minutes, no obligation, no commitment. We just get to learn a little bit more about each other and talk about what this might look like for you. So guys, thank you for listening. I hope that this has woken you up to maybe question what you've accepted as normal and acceptable as just okay in your life. I hope this gets you realizing that you don't have to feel this way each and every day. So guys, I thank you so much for your support of the podcast. I cannot wait to connect with you on the next episode. Bye guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Wake Up Call podcast. If you liked what you heard today, I would love for you to subscribe and leave a review. It takes just a few minutes and does wonders for helping other people find the podcast. If you want to connect outside of the podcast, you can do so by following at Alicia D. Hopkins on Instagram. And if you really liked the episode you just listened to, do me a favor. Would you screenshot the episode and tag me? I would love to see what's resonating with you. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope today's episode helped you to see that you can wake up to the change that's possible in your life.